those moments started to happen. And I would say really started to come to a head my sophomore year of college. I studied abroad in Rome. And most people would think, and I thought at the time, going to Rome, man, it's going to be a hell of a spiritual experience. The seat of the Catholic Church, like I'm really going to understand all of this. And I just got there and like in the first couple nights, like you go to the Vatican and you see homeless people sleeping under the huge facade of the Vatican. And you're just kind of like, wow, okay. Something's not right there. But that's the thing. My whole life I was preached to about like Jesus hung out with the poor people. Jesus like was good to people who were different from him. Like I could name 5 Bible stories, like Zacchaeus, the tax collectors, like all these people who he was supposedly really, cool to, who were not like him and weren't anything special. And like I just got to Rome and all of this started to fall down for me.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the I Didn't Read Your Book podcast. I am your host, Lutch, and today, Ryan Bedell, altar boy to atheist, giving up on God. So I definitely resonate with what you say about being a better person now, but I can see that not clicking with a lot of people. Can you dive into that a little bit more? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't click at all with religious people. To give you some context on like my life and where this book came into it, like my parents aren't really religious anymore, but my grandfather's a Catholic deacon. Like it is really ingrained in my family. So there are quite a few family members who are not necessarily happy with this book coming out. And like, I get it when it's that big of a part of your life, but I think that's the crux for me, is that it becomes such a big part of your life that like, you're willing to ignore conflicting information to your beliefs because you're literally told it's your salvation. You're going to go to heaven, all this stuff. Like, sure, that's life or death, literally. So I get why people buy into it so hard, but like I couldn't get over certain humps until I was free of just the label, even like not calling myself a Catholic anymore, but being able to say like, okay, so maybe like the whole like harassing women at an abortion clinic thing isn't great to do, even if it's in the name of your religion, or like maybe gay people should be able to get married if they want to. Like just literally the doctrine that I didn't really believe, I don't think in my heart of hearts, like I sort of knew it was wrong, but at the same time, like it didn't bother me to say it out loud that that's what I believe, because it was like, well, that's what I'm told to believe. So
and that's what everybody else is doing. And
totally.
And I think the most insidious part is how much, there really is a lot of good things in, core Christian values. There's no denying that. I mean, my whole thing, I'm not going to get on my soapbox. So my whole thing is that the atheist movement has kind of gone awry because of the fact that the spiritual aspect of what people had in their churches is not highlighted. And so they leave behind the bullshit, which is good, but they don't take with them the stuff that we, as looking at morality from a secular perspective, we have to actually contend with, okay, what is the morality of this, that, the other thing? And not to say that Christians don't do that or religious people don't do that, but they have that backbone of, well, this is what God says. So
it's spot on. And that was a huge problem for me. What do I believe now? Beyond the spirituality aspect of it, there's so many things that are comforting to a person. I was bullied as a kid, and like having that community was huge for me. And so like to drop that was losing friends, And so you're spot on, man. You could have written the book yourself.
So let's dive into specifically what you were saying. You were obviously I assume you were an altar boy, and up until later in your life you were doing these things at the protests and stuff. So where did the change occur?
I think the book itself is a collection of small moments and of small pieces along the way where my changing in thinking happened. And so I would say, going to college, leaving St. Louis, I went up to Chicago for school. And I think like encountering people who were different from me was a big start. Like I grew up in a very...
So sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you could help out the channel. And back to the show.
Insulated community, truly. Like I only had Catholic friends. I only had white friends. I only had middle-class friends. Like there was really no change in the people that I was encountering on a day-to-day basis. And my view of people who were different from me was entirely media, entirely like hearing from family and friends. So once I got to college and was like met a gay person, I was like, holy shit, this guy's awesome. Like, I don't know, like, and I write about that in the book. Like, he's still a friend of mine. Basically, I remember very vividly like talking to him, but we never really like broached the religion topic, just sort of like we're friends and that was it. And he was like telling me a story about a dude that he was hooking up with, and I would like think he could see on my face that I was like uncomfortable. And he was like, "What's up, man?" And I was just like, wow, fuck. I was like, fuck, I'm an asshole. Like, if I sat here and told him about a woman that I was hooking up with, I'm expecting him to sit here and listen to that story, but I can't sit here and listen to like his relationship problems because I'm a homophobe. That's little things like that started to happen in college. So I remember also freshman year of college, I took a world religions class, and the guy that taught it was very Catholic, like unabashedly very
Okay.
Catholic. And so he just like had this lens of looking down on these other religions as he's teaching about them. And I was just like, man, like really? I had this idea that I was there to learn.
One of these things is not like the other.
Exactly. It was very prejudicial in a lot of ways, I would say. And so maybe it was just being more intellectually stimulated by other things and like learning more outside of my comfort zone. But those moments started to happen, and I would say really started to come to a head my sophomore year of college. I studied abroad in Rome, and
Cool.
most people would think, and I thought at the time, going to Rome, man, it's going to be a hell of a spiritual experience, the seat of the Catholic Church. Like, I'm really gonna understand all of this. And I just got there, and like in the first couple nights, like you go to the Vatican and you see homeless people sleeping under the like huge facade of the Vatican, and you're just kind of like, wow, okay, something's not right there. But that's the thing, my whole life I was preached to about like Jesus hung out with the poor people, Jesus like was good to people who were different from him. Like, I could name 5 Bible stories, like Zacchaeus, the tax collectors, like all these people who he was supposedly really, cool to, who were not like him and weren't anything special. And like, I just got to Rome and all of this started to fall down for me. I went into the Vatican. Obviously, you go see the museums. I'm just like, okay, so we have a lot of art stolen from other people here. We have a lot of gold and shit that might feed those people outside. So it just didn't start to take long after that. I remember, so I studied abroad in the spring. All this is happening at the beginning, like January. And by Easter, I was a little uncomfortable going to mass. So
wow.
I still went, but was a little uncomfortable. And I didn't call myself an atheist for 5 years after that, I think. Felt good too, once I eventually did.
Right? Yeah. My parents are still very religious. Because I was off at college, it wasn't, I wasn't going to church anymore or anything like that. But on Christmas, we were supposed to, we went to mass, and it was a very weird thing to just be like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I've been doing this for you for a number of years, and I don't feel like I should have to do that anymore.
Well, when you're on the outside of it, attending mass is weird. It is weird.
It's, I mean, if you saw it in any other context, which you could say about so many things of religion, just pretending the body and blood of Christ. And I mean, you could go down the list. It's just, it's very, very, very odd. Once you take that step and you are out of the religion, whether or not you're being open about it with yourself and other people, whether you're identifying yourself or identifying to other people as an atheist, there is that step that you take that you're like, okay, no, I really am done. Even if you've been flirting with it and, kind of questioning things for a while, there's a point at which you're done. And so at that point, as you alluded to before, you have to now figure out, okay, well, what do I believe? My beliefs from birth till now have been spoon-fed to me by people who had it spoon-fed to them. And a lot of my philosophy courses helped with this and talked about, how the concept of God and religion played into ethics and the philosophy of morality and stuff. And so for me, it was, perfect timing right as I was coming out of my religious phase to be in a class with a great professor. So what was the process like for you to start from zero?
Nothing post-religion has been a straight line at all. And I think that's how life should be. Like, life's not usually straightforward. But what you were sort of saying at the beginning there was spot on. There is a moment where it sort of clicks, like I'm done with this, but also like there's a lot of little moments that lead up to that. Like I remember fondly the moment that I first said I was an atheist. I was in Istanbul and I was at a hostel, and the guy that owned the hostel was just a sweet man, and he had a Syrian woman working for him, and like I was the literal only person in the hostel. I'm sitting down, and like they had a little counter where you could order food, and I'm talking to the guy, and he wanted to learn how baseball works. So I was like, all right, I'll explain to you how baseball goes. And I made some comment somewhere in the course of this baseball discussion about religion, and like this conversation started. And I was like, I know there's a lot of religion sort of coming together in Istanbul. It's not everyone is one thing. And I was like, do you identify as Muslim or Christian? And I just assumed that was the dichotomy, because that's what I thought of when I thought of Istanbul. And he was like, oh no, I'm an atheist. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, me too, I'm an atheist. And I was just like, wow, okay, I said it.
That's
like,
a
the
thing.
first time. Yeah. And so building from that, I started to slowly, I think, be a little more out and about with it. I'll post a meme about atheism now and not think twice about it, but I was definitely not like shouting it to the mountains back then. And I think part of that was, like you said, still not knowing exactly who I was going to be in the context of this. Morality, spirituality, all these things that were what I had been given and shown how to do in one context and how I might do them in another context. And reading and philosophy were big ones. Still, one of my favorite books is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Moral philosophy in a way that was like, all right, we do this because it's how things are done, not because like there's a reason for it even. It's just like you don't kill people because you don't kill people. And that's sort of led me to reading about the evolution of morality and how there literally is an evolutionary pathway of like our brains evolve. And we don't normally think of our brains evolving, you know? I think morality is embedded in that in a way, and I find a lot of comfort in that. I don't necessarily need to have a reason for why I come to my moral decisions, but I also know I'm not going to kill anyone. My general moral philosophy is just don't hurt people. Like,
that's always the funniest thing to me, when it's always the Christians who are like, well, why don't you just go rape and murder? It's like,
totally.
Are you like out here trying to rape and murder and just not because the Bible says? Like, that's not how I operate, dude.
Well, people seem to think Christianity was spread by a lot of kumbaya, and it was not. It was not.
That's another great point.